My story really started back in 2011. I started getting intermittent bouts of flu-type symptoms where it was like every 3 or 4 months, I just started getting nausea, vomiting, dizziness, lightheadedness, brain fog, and I was missing 3 to 4 days of work every few months. And my doctor at the time just kept saying, oh, it's gastritis, you're fine, go back to work. So this lasted from 2011 to 2015. It was basically every 3 to 4 months. But the symptoms would get worse. It could be 3 days, it could be 7 days. And it was just like having the flu. And so I changed doctors a few times in those few years. And by 2017, my symptoms were every single month. I was having severe diarrhea, vomiting every morning, dry heaving. It just was exhausting. And then to try to go to work after multiple hours of being sick was my brain. I'm a physical therapist, and my brain, I would just stare at people sometimes. I just couldn't, the connection was completely gone. So then in 2018, I got a new doctor. This was my 4th doctor. And he finally said, you know what? I think we need to test you for some things. I think we actually might want to see how your gastric system is actually working. So he sent me to a GI doctor. And during this time, I was having severe right upper quadrant pain, which I thought was my gallbladder. And it actually ended me up in the emergency room because one day I was walking from my living room to the kitchen, which is about 20 feet, and it dropped me straight to my knees. And my husband was like, that's it, we're going. So we went to the emergency room, and they found that there was some sludge and there was some swelling in my gallbladder, but they found a fecal block in my small intestine. And so the GI doctor said, well, we'll do a colonoscopy. Little did I know at the time that a colonoscopy doesn't actually look at the small intestine where my fecal block was, but that's okay. So went through a colonoscopy, then a week later had an endoscopy, and in order to get the colonoscopy, I had to go through 14 days of a water fast with 2 bowel preps to clear the fecal block in my small intestine. Now, I see your face. Did that actually work? I don't know. They never said anything to me about it, whether it actually cleared anything out. They just did the colonoscopy and the endoscopy and found nothing. And esophagitis, so swelling of the esophagus and some tearing and stuff. And I mean, that is to be expected. I was literally dry heaving and vomiting every day. So 2018 was a battery of tests: HIDA scan, gastric emptying test, the endoscopy, colonoscopy, fecal test, urine sample, 24-hour urine sample. I mean, they tried to figure out what was going on, but nothing really came back. They never talked to me about diet. I was a triathlete, and so I was still trying to train, and they never talked to me about exercise. And so then at the end of 2019, my sister-in-law said, have you ever heard of SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or some people call it SIBO? And no, I hadn't. Even through all of our research, I hadn't heard anything about it. And so we looked it up, and my doctor didn't want to do the test, didn't want to order the test. So he sent me to a naturopath, and she ordered the test. And a month later, I was diagnosed with SIBO, which I'm assuming I had the entire time, just undiagnosed. So right away, my husband and I dove into the research trying to figure out what is the best way to alleviate these symptoms. She gave me, I think, 5 different prebiotics, probiotics, all of these things. And so that was in January of 2020. And so by February, I started keto. And I started keto because basically the bacteria for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth feeds on sugar and carbohydrates. So I just figured if I got rid of those, I would stop being sick. So it helped. It decreased my symptom length of time I was sick, but I was still sick very often. So then all that really changed was in November of 2020, I had a massive migraine, which I think was brought on by sugar, but massive migraine with a seizure, thunderclap headache that left me with stroke-like symptoms. So after that happened, I was bedbound. I was unable to be in the light. I couldn't read. I couldn't listen to music. I couldn't I lived in my bedroom with all the windows covered, blankets over the windows. And my husband had to help me get dressed, had to help me go to the bathroom, had to help me get food. I couldn't go upstairs, which is where our kitchen is. So it was really hard. It was a very, very hard time because I'm used to being outside. I have horses. We live on a small farm. And so all of a sudden, everything was left on my husband, which is not a place I like to be. I tried to figure out ways to do research to figure out what was going on. And I had amazing visuals that I can't even describe what they were like, but all I can say is they were like a laser light show. It was like flashing colors and symbols and they would just shoot through my vision. I'd see things that weren't there. Like I saw a chicken in my bedroom. Of course, there was not a chicken in my bedroom, but I saw it there. I swear it was there. And so I was just seeing really random, crazy stuff. So finally, my husband and I said, I didn't want to go to the hospital. My husband's like, we should go to the hospital. I didn't want to go to the hospital. They've literally done nothing for me with all of my migraines in the past. So I really didn't think they were going to do anything for me this time. But because my vision was so bad and my head felt like it was going to explode all the time, I went to the optometrist. And the optometrist looked at my eyes and diagnosed me with brain swelling and papilledema, which is the disc in your eye swells. And then the nerves in my eyes were all swollen and blurred. And so he ordered an MRI and a referral to the neurologist. Well, I don't know how it is everywhere else, but it's not like I could just get into a neurologist at the end of the week or get into the MRI. So I got the MRI, was able to get into the neurologist by the end of January, and I still was completely non-functional at this time independently. And so my husband went with me, and my neurologist did a lot of different eye testing, but he didn't do a lumbar puncture. So he immediately just said, well, yeah, you've had brain swelling. You didn't have it the day you had the MRI. But you have a black, like scar tissue looking thing on your right eye nerve. And he said, so, it's fine. We're just going to put you on medication. And he started me on a triptan, 2 triptans actually, and topiramate, which is Topamax is the known medication. And so, or the name brand. And so he started me on 3 of those, 1 in the morning and 2 at night. And he said, okay, I'll see you in March. I wasn't functional. I was so disappointed when I left there thinking, what can I do for this? In the meantime, you're just going to send me home. And he did. When I asked him at the very end, what would cause this? I've had migraines since I was 12. Why would this do this? And I don't mean to giggle, but at the time I was very frustrated. But he said, well, 2020 was a very stressful year. And so pretty sure that's what happened. Wait, what? Wait, what now? So I looked at him and I said, did you not hear me? 2020 was a fantastic year for my husband and I, not in the fact that COVID was awful, but my husband and I, we got to go camping and kayaking and backpacking and rafting. And we got to do things that I hadn't done because of my gastrointestinal issues. So 2020 summer was way less stressful for me than the past 5 summers. So I was pretty disappointed. He sent us home. I went right back into my bedroom, had to have eye covers, the whole thing, couldn't be around music, noise, anything like that. So then in March, I went back to see him and he just increased my doses of topiramate. By April, I was just fed up. I just couldn't, if all he was going to do was increase my medication over and over, there had to be something. So I went to my primary care doctor. He put me on a CGRP, which is a Jovi, which is like a bioidentical or whatever they want to call it. I don't know, medication. It's an injectable. And you take it every 30 days. And so he started me on that. And then he also wanted to put me on an anti-anxiety medication. And so I did it. I was like, okay, fine, I'll do that. So did that. And by June, I actually felt like I was feeling a little bit better. I could get dressed. My husband could help me up the stairs, but I could be upstairs, which was a huge bonus. once I could do that, I could get on the internet. I could be on the computer or on my phone for 10 to 15 minutes at a time before I'd go intermittently blind and literally have no eyesight at all. Excuse me. And so I would do that 10 or 15 minutes and try to do research, try to figure things out. And one of my colleagues reached out to me and said, I don't think it's migraines. I think you have idiopathic intracranial hypertension. I had no idea what that was. So I immediately looked it up and all of my symptoms matched what that was. And I said, well, who do I talk to about this? Because my neurologist is treating me like, well, it's age and migraine progression, and you just have to live with it. So she referred me to Johns Hopkins Neurology, where she is an advocate for patients. And I talked to a neurologist there, got a CTV, an MRA to look at the veins and arteries in my brain. And they found that there was some swelling and there was some things that need to be addressed, but I should have had a lumbar puncture. So in order to get a lumbar puncture at this time, I'm now on 6 topiramate. I'd have to wean down off of my topiramate, and my neurologist didn't want me to do that. He was adamantly against it. So I was trying to find another neurologist, and we can't get second opinions. I don't know how it was with 2020 with you guys, but for us, there was no second opinions. I couldn't travel to Oregon Health Science University and get a second opinion. I was just stuck in with who I had, basically. So by the end of 2021, I was still having a lot of the same symptoms, and I couldn't function by myself. I couldn't work. I couldn't barely walk by myself. I mean, everything was just slowly declining. Even my mental health, I will say, was definitely declining. I was not a happy camper. So by the end of December, my husband and I said, we have to figure out another way, because my neurologist was like, well, we could put in a stent if that's what you want. And I was like, it's not what I want, but is it going to help me function? I mean, it's really about me getting back to work and being a functional human being, not just laying in a dark room for the rest of my life. So I opted out. No stents, no surgeries, no exploratory surgeries. I didn't want anyone to cut on me. And so that's when, in the end of December of 21, I found Revero. And I know you interviewed her just a little while ago. And I found her on YouTube because she had idiopathic intracranial hypertension as one of her diagnoses. And I watched a few of her videos and watched that within 3 months of her doing carnivore, she was able to stand and cook her own meals. And I wanted to stand and cook my own meals. I wanted to be able to go to the bathroom by my freaking self. Excuse me, sorry. But I just wanted to be a functional human being. And this was just ridiculous. So I said, well, I mean, I love meat already. So I don't feel like this is going to be a huge problem for me.